It's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Welcome to the National Safe Child Show, addressing the health, welfare, and safety of all children nationwide, because it shouldn't hurt to be a child. Here are your hosts, Tammy Stefano and Priscilla Perez.
Hi folks, welcome to the National Safe Child Show. We have an unbelievable show. We thank you for being our guests today, and I want to jump right into this because I could talk about it for hours. There won't be enough time during this show. I encourage everybody to look this topic up. We're having a guest. His name is Jerry Cooper. He's fabulous. He's a survivor. He is what he still calls a victim because this has haunted his life for many, many years, decades. And it's haunted the lives of hundreds and hundreds of people that have been affected. And what Jerry has done is more than honorable. I'm in awe of the work that he's done and the work that these men have done. They call themselves the White House Boys. And this is not Washington, D.C., friends. The White House Boys were boys that were in the state of Florida. They were considered juvenile delinquents, although many of them will come to understand were not delinquents at all. Actually, Jerry Cooper wasn't a delinquent. He was being abused by his stepfather, and he ran away from home. Teenager, fed up, ran away from home, hitchhiked, and he caught a ride. And back in the 60s, that's what everybody did. You know, you hitchhiked if you needed a lift. And put his thumb out, caught a ride by a man who he later found out was a Marine Corps guy with the Marines. And he had been, he went AWOL. He gets stopped by the police, and he gets arrested. Jerry gets put in this house just because he was in the car, and they wouldn't believe that he had just hitched a ride. This changed the direction of this boy's life forever. Today, the White House Boys are coming on. We're so honored to have them. I want to read something quick that Jerry sent me because it's amazing. So this story literally goes on for about 100 years. I'm going to read just some quick excerpts from the Tampa Tribune, and this is from November 5th, 1918, folks, if you can even believe it. They went into this house that they were investigating. So, let's see. Okay. United States Public Health Service relating to conditions at the State Institution School for Boys at Mariana. In this state, the official went to that institution during the recent influenza, and the recent disease influenza. What he found is partly contained in the following paragraph, quoted by the Tribune. I beg to submit the following report. Conditions at the school are very bad. Sewerage, imperfect. No sanitary rules at all. Screens broken. Fleas by the thousands. There were 35 cases of pneumonia, lack of medicine, lack of proper nourishment, no linens. The boys were lying under wool blankets, naked, with dirty mattresses on the cement floor. The reason said to be that the husks would all run out if it was put on a cot. The condition was of filth, body lice, improper food, no bathing for lack of towels. The samples of the bed linens and the shirts brought into the Jacksonville office, superintendent have not seen a boy in 4 weeks, according to the attendants. The dinner of the well-colored boys. Now remember, folks, back in these days, there was segregation. Blacks didn't intermingle with whites, as we know. So well-colored boys would be the African-American children. The dinner of the well-colored boys, the day I was there, being hot hoe cake and bacon grease thickened with flour. The dinner of the white boys being rice and bacon grease gravy. One boy said that he was flogged for refusing to cook peas filled with worms to serve these kids. That meat sent to the boys was kept until spoiled and then fed to them. They were all sick. I advise an immediate investigation. Folks, this is from 1918. It will be remembered that only a short time ago there was an accident at the state school by which a number of boys' lives were lost through a burning of a building and the stupidity and carelessness of those in charge. At the time, there was such an indignation expressed throughout the state that the young boys sent to the institution for care and training were so wantonly exposed to danger as to that disastrous fire. Now comes a clear-cut statement from an official of the United States that conditions of the Mariana School, folks remember this, Mariana School, are too horrible to contemplate. The authorities do not seem to have learned anything by the lessons of the fire. Conditions have not improved, and the wards of the state are subjected to deprivations and cruelties comparable to that, listen to this, folks, comparable to what the Hun has visited on Belgium. This is unbelievable. Our blood has boiled over the iniquities of the German soldiers in Belgium and France, but what we have to say to the revelations of the Public Health Service as to the conditions of the state institution at Mariana, they're the same. Unpleasant reading is this, that the sewage at the school is imperfect. There's no sanitary regulations. Screens are broken. Flies, mosquitoes, fleas are prevalent. There's no linen for the beds. The mattresses are dirty. The beds are on the floor. There's no night clothing for the boys, and they must lie there sick and miserable, entirely naked. And no washing is done for the boys, that they are dirty and fed improper food, and that they do not have enough food. And we are told by an official who has no reason to misinterpret conditions that all of this miserable mismanagement results in much illness and suffering for the boys of the school. There is an indictment, good people of Florida, that you have neglected your wards, that your officials have not provided sufficient funds to keep your wards decently fed, clothed, and housed. The management of the school has permitted a condition that shames the whole state. How do you like it? ? And the Tribune very forcibly adds, this is the conclusion, in the face of that report, the starved soul and broken bodies of those whipped and starved into obedience of the rules more stern than in convict camp cry out in anguish to the people of Florida who have trusted their reformation to men who slack their duty. While demanding the punishment of slackers, in the face of that report, every tortured, lice-bitten, naked body tossed in filth on a mattress harder than the cement floor it rested on cries out for mercy, cries out for death, even to release it from its horrible torture. In the name of God and humanity, and we submit longer to the cruelties and Hun hellishness in those in charge of this institution. Folks, 1918. Nothing changed since this was printed in the Florida Tribune. Boys continue to suffer. We're going to meet the White House boys today. I wish that they could be in the studio at this wonderful UBN network. They're not able to because they're in Florida fighting the good fight. And we need to support them in this fight. I know Jerry Cooper, what I consider the leader in this movement of exposing these horrific conditions that did not change when he was a child and when he was thrown into this facility, not because he was a criminal, but basically because he was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And what happened to Jerry Cooper is considered exactly like what happened with the Hun when they went into Belgium. Beaten, starved. He doesn't know why he didn't die. He just had the will. And he attributes it to having been abused by his stepfather and built up a resistance to pain, and that's the way it went. I can tell you all, folks, that this is an unfortunate situation, but the state of Florida is now pushing. Well, let me retract. The state of Florida is being pushed by these men who will stand for no more silence, and they will stand for no more cover-up of this horrific situation. So, folks, pay attention, support these men that have suffered, that have refused to be silent. I can tell you, when I spoke with Jerry, he was explaining to me that I believe that the number was 73 of the men that were in Mariana Boys' Home.
Hello, you've reached Bill and Janice. Please leave us a message.
That were in the Mariana Boys' Home, that they went through the most horrific events, and that there is nothing that will happen now to silence them. 73% of them ended up being incarcerated. 73%. 94% of them ended up with felony records. 94%. Folks, this is absolutely unheard of. It can't be tolerated anymore. And we're going to get Jerry on the phone right now. I know he's waiting, and we need to really pay attention, folks. Senator Nelson has gotten involved. He's looking at this. They have gone in and excavated. Jerry was so sure, and these boys were so sure about bodies, friends of theirs, boys that they shared maggot food with, if you will, shared the most horrendous conditions at this facility. And all of a sudden, one boy after another boy after another boy would just disappear. This has to stop, because I know, folks, I've been covering another story that will soon have the guests on, where these homes, these facilities, these behavioral facilities, these juvenile delinquent centers, and I'm not saying all of them, folks. There's always good and bad in all of the pots. The point being, many of them are so corrupt, the living conditions so heinous, and the workers that are the hands-on delegators are sadomasochists. And that's the only label that I can give to them. They enjoy abusing children. They have taken on these positions in order to inflict bodily harm, many times to the point of death. And that's exactly what happened in this house and in another story that I'm covering presently. And it has to stop. If we want to make a change and we want society to change, folks, the only way that we're going to do that is by some real hardcore reform. And it's going to take we the people. I say that all the time, we the people. But it seems to be that society has forgotten that they are part of the we. And I ask you, I'm begging you, not for me, but for the sake of the little children whose voices are silenced, to please step forward and get proactive, just as proactive as Jerry Cooper has. And the results are phenomenal, what he's been able to do. We're going to take a 1-minute break, and we'll be right back, folks. Thank you so much.
future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Hi, folks. We're back on. Thank you. Okay, we're going to get Jerry Cooper on with us now. We are waiting in anticipation, and you know what? Good to have these.
Hello?
Hi, Jerry. Welcome
Yes.
to the National Safe Child Show. Sorry for the pause, and we're glad to have you on.
Well, I thank you very much, Tammy, and I just want to say before we go any further, the White House boys are fully aware of what you do on a daily basis concerning child safety, and we honor you very much, and I know you've put most of your life into making sure that these children have a fair break here in the United States.
Jerry,
Just want to thank you. Thank you very much, man.
thank you so much, Jerry. That means the world to me from
Thank you.
coming from somebody like you. It really does, because I'm in awe of what you guys are doing, actually. And honestly, you're really you're a role model for all of us, and we can learn a thing or two from the White House boys' persistence to uncover the truth. And I really honor you. So thank you. Thank you for those beautiful and kind words.
Okay, ma'am. Just before I forget it, in
Okay.
case some of the guests that we got coming on, which will be White House boys, could I please tell them to please stand by? They will be contacted very shortly.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I do appreciate that very much.
Of course.
Basically, we have been on this issue for probably, I have, in the last 6 years. It involves murder. It involves some of the worst child abuse that could have possibly happened. We have been dubbed as one of the most abusive institutions in the history of the United States, right there in the panhandle of Florida. So many things are being found at this time, of course, by University of Southern Florida, who is in there doing a complete discovery search. They are trying to recover bodies that of people that have reported children missing. They are trying to find out how they died, why did they die. So, we're right in the middle of the beginning of the story at this time. And it was really a big battle. It was really a big battle to go forth and try to get this done after the Florida Department of Law Enforcement informed me that our investigation is over, Mr. Cooper. We're not going any further with it. There are 31 bodies buried at this particular location. I argued it, and I argued it, and I argued it. I begged for them to go in there with what we call ground-penetrating radar, and all you have to do, sir, is tell me that you've got 31 bodies in here, and that might make a big difference. Well, when University of Southern Florida got involved in this a while later, there wasn't 31 bodies. There were 55 bodies.
55 bodies of children that were in this facility.
Yes, not one child out of the total 55 had a proper marker, nor were they recorded in proper state guidelines as to a lot number, where they're buried, which is by law, who they are, and when they died, with a full report of how they died. It just seems like, why would you treat especially children, throw them in the ground, throw a couple of little wooden crosses up or whatever they did, and then all of a sudden, there's nothing there but woods, brush, trees. You would not know, other than a few pipe markers that were put in there back in the late 60s, that there were even any children buried in this cemetery.
I know, I've seen those photographs, and it's literally like a PVC pipe, and that's it.
Well, it's iron pipe. I've been there.
Oh, it's iron.
It's iron pipe, and that basically was put in there by believe it or not, we had a Boy Scout troop back in the 60s that was on the property, and their scout leader, knowing that there was a cemetery of some sort there, wanted to put something there to honor these children, anything. Right. And they used iron pipes, and they didn't even put them in the right location. They just stuck them all over the place, and it's not even in what you call the main part of the cemetery. So the staff there did not care one way or the other whether you were dead, whether you were alive, whether you were shown where you were buried. This is about as sick as you can get. And I will tell you that I have contacted a lot of major institutions in this state, including Rayford State Prison, including the Chattahoochee Mental Hospital, located about 50 miles from there, which started its hospital about the same time that the Florida School for Boys was started. Well,
right. I think
you check their records. They know where every person is buried, how they died, and they are marked.
And they won't. I think that we have all of the gentlemen on the phone. Gentlemen, are you with us now?
Robert Straley.
Hi, Robert. We're honored to have
Hi.
you. You are a White House boy, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Welcome. We're honored. And next gentleman?
James Harley tonight, White House boy.
Welcome, James. Thank you. We're honored to have your presence.
Thank you.
And anybody else on?
Bob Baxter.
Bob Baxter? Bob, if you can come closer to the phone, because we don't want your voice to be silenced anymore. Yes, go ahead. Speak up. Bob Baxter, and you are a White House boy, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome, Bob. We're honored to have you on with us today. And is there anybody else with us? Okay. So is there anybody else with us?
Yeah, this is Bill Price.
I'm sorry, one more time. Is this Bill Price?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Bill. Thank you. And you are?
I'm a White House boy.
Welcome, Bill. Thank you. We honor you. And anybody else? Okay. Gentlemen, thank you, and thank you for being here with us. We want to get this story out, and I know that so many national media sources have covered this, including CNN, Al Jazeera, People Magazine, Time Magazine. I know you gentlemen certainly know more than I do and can name these media sources off, but the point being, because of your persistence, that is the only reason why this has been covered. And guys, you are the role model for every systemic failure that is abusive to children, that loses hope, because you guys never lost hope, and you never lost the fact that you were going to kick ass because it was your turn now. And you weren't going to shut up anymore, and you didn't have to hide anymore, and you wanted this horrific torture that you experienced exposed, and you are the role model for everybody who's fearful, who gives up, who has law enforcement tell them, listen, this investigation is done. Well, Jerry Cooper, when law enforcement told you that, did you walk away?
No, I did not. I replied, that's the last time I spoke to the lead investigator. I just basically said, sir, this is not over until we, the White House boys, says it's over.
Yes.
And we have come a long way since then.
Jerry, I want to, honey, and I know you have. And I'm so proud of all of you. I'm so proud of all of you. I spoke with Jerry almost a year ago, and boy, within a year, the accomplishments that these gentlemen have been able to do is, honestly, it's historical. It's historical. You know, the power of the voice and persistence and refusal to be thrown under the carpet is incredible, folks. Everybody should look at these guys and say, we're not afraid anymore and we're not accepting no. Jerry, I want to go right into, if you don't mind, if we begin with Jerry's story, and I just want to go right into Jerry's story. You, and I already have explained, you were hitchhiking. You were at the wrong place at the wrong time, and you got thrown into this boy's home. And let's talk about, if we can fast forward, to the night that you were dragged to the White House. And guys, tell us why the White House is actually labeled the White House.
Okay. Basically, to answer the first question there, and I'm not going to take up a lot of time here because these men have very important information, and I'll go through mine very quickly. Okay. The White House is named the White House because it was painted white. It used to be called the ice cream parlor by the men that were there, such as Bob Baxter. I think he's on the phone with us now. And back during his period, it was called the ice cream parlor. And then it went on to gain the name of the White House. And this is a building that we were taken into, and that is where we were beaten. And they also had an industrial fan in there that they would turn on to drown out the screams, especially if you were being beaten at night. They would turn this fan on, and you could not hear yourself think because it was so loud. And that was a mask to try probably to keep from the other kids that absolutely, going insane if you woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're hearing all these screams. But, when we laid in bed, Tammy, I have heard that fan come on many, many nights. And when you're there, me personally, I never slept the whole time that I was there. I was full of anxiety. You could not rest. Every time a noise would happen, it would just about scare you out of your bed because you didn't know when these people would be coming for you. They even would tell you, well, you're going down, and going down meant that you're going to that White House, and then they'd let you think about it for a few days. How would you like to go to bed? How would you like to go eat your meals, knowing for a fact they're coming, but you have no clue when?
My God.
That is one punishment in itself that is too imaginable to think about because of the severity of these beatings. And I'm not talking about spankings like Mr. Troy Tidwell mentioned in his deposition. These were pure hell flogging beatings that would rip you wide open. Now, myself, I got sent to Mariana because I had ran away from home 3 times because I could not in any way, form, or fashion get along with my stepfather. No matter what I did, it was wrong. I got good grades in school. I was an all-star quarterback for the school. He didn't care about that. We did not get along. We did not get along whatsoever, causing me to flee on 3 separate occasions. And the 3rd time, when I did get, they come and got me in North Carolina because I caught a ride with a Marine that was AWOL in a 59 Chevrolet convertible that I had no clue was stolen in any way, form, or fashion. When the law got behind us in South Carolina, I didn't know what was going on. I heard the sign. I sit up, I looked behind me, and this boy driving, his name was Danny, he said, you better get down because we're gonna beat these people. And I'm screaming. I'm saying to him, what's going on? What's wrong here? We are now over 100 miles an hour. And the roads were wet. They were slippery. It was 20 degrees outside. So I just climbed underneath the dashboard, down in the corner.
Yes.
I just thought for sure I was going to die. Well, he lost control of the car in a curve. The car went off the road, down the embankment, flipped over, and landed sideways in the creek. Well, he managed to get out the top of the door. I could not. I was underneath him, and I didn't know what was going on yet. And as he pops out the door window, which was broken, gunfire erupted. And I mean big-time gunfire. And I just stayed huddled up. And finally, I started screaming. And they told me to stick my hands up and come up very slowly, and I did. They came down and jerked me across the car through the creek and took me back up on the road. And they told me, your partner just ran in the woods over here. You better start yelling for him because we've got the dogs coming right now from Aberdeen, North Carolina, which was only a few miles away.
Right.
So they gave me a megaphone, and I called to this man at least 3 or 4 times, and then all of a sudden, he stands up, and he's in the spotlights. He was crouched down in the bushes.
Right.
So we were transferred to Aberdeen, North Carolina City Jail. I was put in one cell. He was put in the other. 2 days later, I see these 2 Marine police walk by my cell. They go get Danny, and they walk out. He leaned back and looked at me, and he said, good luck, partner. You're going to need it. That's the last time I ever saw him.
And it was because of this car situation that you ended up at this home.
Yes, they took me back to Orlando. This is really crazy. The man that worked for the juvenile system at that time for Orange County, I was from Orlando. When he showed up, I knew who he was. I knew him by name. His name was Mr. Stroh-Snyder, and I was in the same class with his daughter. He said to me when we went out to the car, Jerry, do I really need to put handcuffs on you and cuff you to the rail in the back of that car? I said, Mr. Stroh-Snyder, there is no reason for you to do that. I'm not running anywhere. I'm in trouble. I accept I'm in trouble. I'm ready to go back to Florida. So we drove back to Florida. But instead of taking me to where I should have been, which, by the way, you're talking to a man here in a few minutes by the name of James DeKnight. We call him Harley. He knows himself because he also went to Mariana from the same county I did. They were supposed to have put me in Michigan Avenue lockup, a detention center.
Right.
They took me straight to county jail and put me in with the population. I'm only 15 years old, and I'm in with total population because they said my charge of car theft is a felony. So, catch-22 there. My mother shows up a couple of days later, visits Maddie Farmer, who was my judge. I remember her name. I'll never forget this.
Yeah.
And she told my mother, you will not have a lawyer for him. We do not allow that. Right there is a civil rights violation.
Absolutely.
Anybody in the United States can get a lawyer if you're charged with a crime.
Absolutely. Well, back then, and even now, listen, if somebody wants something to go one way, I don't care what forum you're in, it's going that way. For the sake of time, my dear, we have to go because I kind of told that story at the beginning, but I didn't want to interrupt you because you tell it obviously so much more compelling. You got dragged one night to the White House, and you got flogged. How many times did you get flogged on that particular night? That night that we both.
I received 135 lashes, which I sent you the polygraph that I took on that and passed it with flying colors.
But I want you to, wait a minute. I want
ahead.
you to tell me about them dragging you to that house. The listeners need to understand. You and I know the story, but they really need to understand how horrific.
Well,
you're in the room.
All the men that are on here are going to know this description.
Yeah.
The leather flogging tool that they used to beat us with was approximately, I'm just saying, I would have to say 2.5 feet to 3 feet. It was affixed with a wooden handle. A lot of the men, and I'm not sure, I can't be positive about this, say that there was a piece of sheet metal that was sewn in the middle of that strap. I cannot really verify that. I thought I saw it, but I don't know for a fact. The strap itself was probably half an inch thick by maybe 3.5 to 4 inches wide. And when it came down and it hit you, you're on an army bunk, it would raise you off that bed 1 to 2 feet. And it would sound like a 12-gauge shotgun going off every time it struck your body. And I mean with full force from big, big men. And when they wanted to cut you with it, we call it being cut, you could tell before it hit your body because you would hear the upswing, and then when it come down, it would make a little bit different noise because it's not cutting the wind, it's on its side. It would rip a piece of meat out of you bigger than a quarter.
Oh my God.
And I will tell you that I am scarred all over my backside, all over my legs, with holes from this strap hitting me on the corner tip of the strap itself. That's what did a lot of the damage there. And my nightgown at the time, they made us wear nightgowns. My nightgown was beat into me so badly when they got through that when I got back to the cottage, I had to rip all that extra cloth and stuff.
All right, but
out of my legs.
I want the listeners to know they took you that night. They threw you on this bed, and Tidwell said, "You better hold on to those bed rails."
Oh yeah.
Hold on to the bed rails because you're getting a flogging.
Yeah, but see, Tammy.
Yeah, go ahead.
I reacted the second I got through the door. I attacked.
Okay.
I knew that I had done nothing. I was accused of knowing about somebody running, which did not happen. It did not happen. And when I cleared the door, I immediately attacked everybody.
Right.
And they crossed my legs once they got me on. There was 5 men, Mr. Walters, Mr. R.W. Hatton, Mr. Tidwell, and 2 guards that were night guards there. And they all got me on the bed, got my legs crossed, and they stuffed my nightgown between my legs as tight as they could get it, crossed my legs, and tied the back legs to the bar, and then bent my 2 hands over the front rail to keep me from moving. I was not a volunteer. I weighed 170-some pounds, and I'm a jock, and I wasn't about to let them beat me for just to be beating me.
Right.
It wasn't going to happen, but it did. I lost war.
135 times. How do you know at any point, Jerry, during that particular beating, did you pass out?
Yes, I did.
How did you know?
There was another young man that was in the other room waiting to be beat because he was the one that was involved with the runner from my cottage, and he was in there waiting for his beating.
And while he was waiting, he was listening, right?
Oh, yeah.
And how did you know, Jerry, how many times you were hit?
He counted them.
He counted them.
He counted 135. He said, Jerry, after about 75 or 80, you didn't even make a sound. He said it was like somebody beating on a drum. You did not respond. You did not grunt. He said, therefore, he really thought that I had died because when he saw me, you see, he wasn't even from my cottage. When he saw me a week or 2 later in the school, his eyes got big as saucers. He said, I thought you were dead.
And,
I mean, this is
and
how
rightfully
bad
so. And rightfully so. Jerry, when you got taken back after 135 flogs from these men, these sadomasochists who obviously they enjoyed beating. They looked for a reason. They didn't need one. They looked for one. They made these reasons up just to get in a good old beating.
They loved it. I will tell you right now, you ask the rest of the men on this phone, that was one of their passions, ma'am. And when you ran, if you don't think they didn't like getting those damn dogs together, the pit bulls and the bloodhounds, it was like coon hunting to them. And they enjoyed it, every minute of it.
It was like a game to them.
Yes.
It was like a game.
And if any of you guys listen to me disagree, say it now.
Guys, do you feel that it was a game?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. It was totally a game.
It was a game.
There was no 2 ways about it. I mean, if you ran, It was just like open season.
Who's speaking right now?
James Harley.
Hi, James. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I mean, when Jerry's talking about getting his lashes, his licks, I mean, you know, when he came out there, he was like hamburger. I've seen a few other guys get as many as he got, but I only went down one time. And that one time was enough for me. And I didn't get no 135. I got, you know, minimum 20. But they beat you from the small of your back to the back of your knees. And that's how much territory they covered. And when they got done with you, from the small of your back down to the back of your knees was black. They would draw the blood right to the surface of your skin. And if you was thick-skinned and you didn't split, you was lucky. And then they'd make you run back to the office after they beat the hell out of you. And I was 16. I was 16 when I went down to the White House. I was 16, 6 foot tall. And I had a little bit of an advantage on getting on that bed because I could stick my heels under that rail at the back and hold on to the rail with my hands. But, you know, and here's the other thing. The smaller kids and the weaker kids that went down and got beat, if they didn't hold the bed, they'd go in and they'd get the kitchen boys because the kitchen was right just across the street. They'd get kitchen boys and bring them in and make the kitchen boys sit on you while they beat you.
Amen.
And then if the kitchen boy wouldn't sit on you, they'd get their ass beat. You know, Troy Tidwell took me down. Troy Tidwell and Bud White. Bud White was my cottage father. And I'll never forget walking in that door. Me and 2 other boys walked in that door. And the minute they turned that fan on, it was like walking into the back of an old jet engine. And it just sucked the air right and sucked the life right out of you. But, you know, I did a total of 18 months there at Mariana. Went in November of 64 and got out in May of 66. And the only reason they sent me out at that time because I turned 17. I was of age. But
are you lucky to have survived? Are you lucky to have left with your life? Do you feel?
Yeah, I'm lucky to have left with my life, and I didn't learn. I didn't learn anything. I got more corrupt because I wasn't out of there 3 months, and I'd already got myself a 5-year prison sentence. So, you know,
most of the men, James. I mean, this is not most of the men. If they were able to leave, they were so pissed off at the world because they knew that they didn't deserve what they got. There's nobody that deserved that.
If you didn't come out of there with an attitude, there was something wrong with you.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. I mean, I would have been pissed off too. We've got postmen who get pissed off at their work conditions and go firing off, you know. Yeah. I can't imagine what the hell you guys went through that you wouldn't come out pissed off at the world.
There was a problem.
Who's speaking now? Is this Bill?
This is Bill.
Hi, Bill. Go ahead.
There was a problem also. There was a lot of kids that didn't have visitors. They didn't get mail. And they were probably abused a lot more than what some of the others were that were getting visitors because they didn't have anyone to complain to. And
right.
They didn't have, you know, so they used them, you know, a lot more at beating on them. And I can remember I was there 3 days before I went to the White House the first time. And mine was supposed to be for disrespect.
For disrespect, you got put here.
No. I got put there for running away from home. That's why I went there, and I had a stepfather said, we don't want him here, get him out of here, do whatever you want to with him, and they sent me to Mariana.
Okay.
But I ran away from home to avoid the abuse from the stepfathers.
Gotcha.
So they put me somewhere where I would get more.
Yes.
And
Your worst beating, Bill.
Yes.
Your worst beating.
I ran away twice from there.
Okay.
The first time that I went down, they gave me 25 licks for disrespect after I was there for 3 days. And, of course, I had already ran away from home because I was beat by stepfathers. So now I'm going to get beat when I go here. Of course, I'm going to run away.
Right.
So I ran away from there, and that was probably a week after I had gotten 25 licks. So I went as far as a town up there called Chipley. And some old woman gave me a ride, and she went into a service station, said she had to use the bathroom, came back out, and as soon as she came back out, service station attendants, cops, everybody, they grabbed me and sent me back. And I think they actually got paid, anybody in the town or whatever,
to bring you back.
If you turned in a runaway,
right?
They actually paid them for that.
Right, absolutely.
Well, when they brought me back, they gave me 100 licks, and that was a standard for running away.
Okay.
If you ran away, you got
it was an
100.
Automatic 100.
Yes. So they gave me 100. Well, I had 25 just a week before, and then I got 100. So, it pretty much calmed me down for a while.
Right. Gentlemen, there's somebody, I'm sorry to interrupt, there's somebody on who's asking. The question is this place still open? I'm going to respond no. What years, does anybody have a time, what years?
2011.
What year did it begin?
And I'd like to say something about the history of this place.
Who's speaking
now?
Why
this happened.
Robert
Straley.
Okay, Robert, please go ahead.
All right, the reason that this school was so brutal, they got away with 68 years of flogging boys. That's a fact, supported by many, many witnesses over the years. And in 1922, Governor Hardy had to ban flogging for all adult prisoners over the death of Martin Tabbert, a young man that got put to death in the Putnam Lumber Company.
Okay.
And he said that flogging was too brutal an abuse for even the most hardened convicts, so he banned it. But it went on at the boys' school for 45 more years.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the weighted belts, Andrew Bowers, who was a chaplain there in 59 to 63, said that they practiced flogging as a method of discipline, but really as a matter of when. They would spank the boys when they did wrong or really whenever they wanted to. He said many beatings were administered with a weighted leather flogging strap. And this is testimony from people that were before Congress, before Senate, before the House. Audie Langston, who was a former superintendent there, happened to be there when they were beating, and he went in to see what was going on.
Okay.
And he said the strap was welded man that was 6'3" and over his head and as hard as he could swing it. He said the results are sickening. The child quivers and wrists in a contorted manner from the pain of a sadistic, almost repulsive and criminal in nature. Dr. Eugene Berg was a psychiatrist at the Florida for Boys and later became a Miami psychologist. He had to testify before the Senate Commission about the beatings, and he said they are delivered with a great force over the head and down with a wooden handle and a leather strap. And a senator asked, "What is your opinion?" And Dr. Berg replied, "It is my opinion, it is brutality." Governor Claude Kirkland.
When was this? I'm sorry. What year was this?
Well, these were different years. Like Senator Berg was in 1958, and the Audie Langston. I don't have a date for that, but I have a link to all of this stuff. That has the dates and everything into it. Andrew Bowers was 59 to 63. Kurt came in there in 67. and found it to open the building up because he'd heard about it.
Okay.
When he saw the whip hanging on the wall in the bloody bed, that's when his statement got out to the press. He said, if one of your kids were kept in such circumstances, you'd be up here with rifles. They should have blown the whistle on Mariana long ago.
But they
Jack
were blowing
Levine
the whistle. They were talking about it. They were testifying, but nobody did a damn thing. The school stayed open.
Well, Governor Kirk did it. He was there in 67. In 1968, he sent down O.J. Keller, a good man, to stop the beatings, and it took him nearly a year to stop it because of so much opposition from the people that were doing these beatings. Lennox Williams, who had been a superintendent there, was very much against stopping. The town was against stopping it. They were enraged that they might even think about it. But he did
against stopping what? Against stopping the beatings?
Yes, they didn't want them to
yes.
stop. See, the town had a part in that. Whenever a boy ran, they sounded a whistle, and all the farmers would jump in their truck, and off they went to try to find the boys with shotguns, And if they caught a boy, they could get a pig or a side of beef. And there was a British reporter that went in and found 4 old men that lived behind the school today, and got somebody to talk, and it just blew me away at what the guy said. There's a man named Calvin Creamer. He said back then it was torture for those boys, and the police didn't care either. They would strip them down and strap them to 50-gallon drums naked, and then they beat them. Now, just to think of being stripped naked by a bunch of big farmers, rough farmers, is bad. But I realized a week later that this was a place worse than the White House, because when we were whipped on a bed, it had springs under it. When that hits you, it knocked you down into that bed a foot. These boys were against steel. They had no mercy. And I doubt if any of them got out of there without some sort of severe injury, and I believe that some of them died. When they quit the beatings, then they went to hog tying boys as young as 10. Jack Levine and Claudia Wright in 1983 started the class action suit Bobby M. lawsuit, and they stopped that from happening, But it just went to fists and elbows, and then finally to psychotropic drugs. The Roy Manella, who was the official of the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, said that Mariana was one of the worst examples in the nation of a boy reform school. Sheila Wexler, and this was Dr. Wexler's daughter. I worked there at the school as a hospital boy under Dr. Wexler. And she said that she occasionally treated boys that had cuts or welts in their behind, but if they needed a stitch, it would only be a few.
Oh my God,
that's pretty bad.
This is not
jury.
This is
1915 stated, we find the employees were men that were immoral and not proper persons to lead wayward boys towards reformation. Lennox Williams, the man I mentioned, was deposed in a court case and asked, did these ever get out of hand? And he said, yes, at times it did. And he said there were some who may have enjoyed the overbeating. And the last person was Howard James. He was a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer, and he was with the Christian Science Monitor. He went around the country looking in on these reform schools. He went to one in Indiana that used flogging as well, wrote up a piece, and his advisor called him immediately, just furious, and said, I do not want you to use the word flogging. I want you to use the word spanking.
Of course. They want to minimize the torture that they're committing.
And he said this before the subcommittee. He ended it on what I think is a major statement. He said to the subcommittee, the major problem is the type of people attracted to jobs there. Sadists, homosexuals, dull workers who can't find work anywhere else, and those who care deeply about children. And he said most fall into the category of dull workers. Now, Jerry found an article, and I found 2 more just recently. recently, this is after 6 years of research, did we happen to find 3 articles that were in the area that we didn't have much information on, and that was from 1940 on. We knew that it had to have been very bad. And I'm going to read you just a little bit. I'm just talking about 6 lines from 1918.
I already read the whole thing. I read it all before you guys came on. I read the whole article to give people an understanding.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
This is
the other statements was this was the exploiting human misfortunes, and this was written in I think it was 1915.
Okay.
And it said a reformatory ought to be a reformatory and not a place of filth, imprisonment, and despair, such as takes the heart out of the young, makes him doubt God, and revile the state that gives him birth.
Yeah.
A sentence of this kind is rather a graduate invitation to mental and moral disintegration. And this, of course, all of this brutality came from the turpentine camps, the lumber camps, and the phosphate mills that stretched from Jacksonville to the other end of the Panhandle. They kept people as slaves after the Civil War till 1950 in these camps. Each camp had a whipmaster. Many were beaten to death. Many died. And, of course, they got no nutrition, just like that you read. The boys were being fed bacon, grease, gravy over rice.
I know.
What kind of a meal is that?
I know.
So it was these archive articles that we made our case with, and Carol Marvin was the one that broke the story in 2008. October 19th, 2 full pages in the Miami Herald, 2 powerful videos, and it went nationwide the next day and worldwide.
And not surprising.
St. Pete Times picked it up and did 6 Sundays in a row called For Their Own Good. And that was the best story that anybody's done. They won the Dark Award, runner-up for the Pulitzer Prize. If you go and read his article, that will tell you everything.
All right, Jerry, if you can send me that article, because we want to get all of these good articles. Gentlemen, if you can send Jerry all of these links to these articles, so then I can put them out so that everybody has access in one place. Also, I want to talk about your website, the White House Boys website, because actually you guys, I'm sure, have all of your articles there.
Yes, we do. As a matter of fact, if the people would like to know, all one word, my website under the official White House Boys would be theofficialwhitehouseboys.org. And Robert, give your URL for your site, please.
Yes.
Okay, my URL is either whitehouseboys.com or thewhitehouseboysonline.com. Then I also did a small blog with 100 stories instead of 1,000, so a person can get
a good idea.
Click on it.
Okay.
And that's called thewhitehouseboysblog.com.
Excellent.
And on that, it's just two lines, one on one side, one on the other. The left side is all about history, and that's where you'll find the things that I mentioned, the archived articles.
Right.
And you'll run across an article called The Worst of the Worst, and that's a bunch of young boys there.
Yeah.
There were thousands of young boys, some as young as 5 or 6 years old.
My God.
At this school. And those boys, like Jerry said, it was the 9 to 12-year-old boys that got the most beatings.
Yes, they did.
It was like people. They took somebody like Jerry in there. They went in there with 4 people.
Right.
Because Jerry knocked Tidwell down. I had a friend.
Well, he was the quarterback. They weren't taking him down easy.
Right. My friend, Mike Schreck, was 6'5.5" and weighed 240 pounds.
Wow.
They had 4 men in there with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
They didn't need it, because he was tough. And
Bobby, tell him how small you were.
Yes.
Well, I was 13. I weighed 105 pounds. I'd never been in a fight, never been whipped. never even been sick, so I didn't know what pain was. First night I went in for talking about running with some other boys, and I got 35 lashes, I think, maybe 40. It was a shock. There'd been five boys there ahead of me. And listen, I was the last one in line, which you don't want to be at. I had to listen to them, and they all come out in the same manner. I didn't know what shock was back then, but I do now. Yeah. Their hands were clenched and buried in their crotch. Their eyes were wide. They were crying. They were white as a sheet. They were in shock. You know, and
yes,
Jerry and I
Bobby,
talked about that. Shock can kill somebody.
Yes. Tammy,
now, they can
I'm not
all
in
they want to
Tammy,
yes.
My biggest concern is this. It is a huge concern, and I've spoken with it. Even these men on the phone know exactly where I'm coming from. I discussed with the head archaeologist, anthropologist at USF, that my concern would be this. A lot of those kids, they may be sick, they could have a heart problem or a physical problem that the school would have no knowledge of.
Right.
And I feel that more than one child did not come out of that White House with these kind of beatings and died from shock.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that,
Jerry. Shock is not going to show up. Shock is not going to show up with the bodies.
That's right.
Shock leaves no telltale sign. But you got to understand that we also have had boys shot and killed at that school. Shot and killed.
Well, here's the thing, Jerry, and this is important, gentlemen. You all know, again, Jerry, I want to go back because we are going to run out of time soon. I want to go back to the night that you got 135 floggings. You were taken out of that room because the listeners need to understand this is not just a beating. And we can describe the weapon that they used and the men that held you down and held many of these boys down. Many of these boys, 9 years old, younger. You walked out, and something that you told me, Jerry, will forever be in my mind. Just like you don't ever forget the judge, his name, okay?
Her name.
Yeah. You said you went back to your room, your bunk, whatever it's called, and your nightgown that you had on. Tell us about that, or tell us about the next morning when you woke up. It's
basically,
important.
When I got back to the White House, they had thrown me. I wasn't in the same car they took me down in. They actually had me in David Walter's nice brand new Ford Fairlane, but they had thrown me on the floorboard in the back of the car, you know, where the hump is, and you know, and as we were pulling back into the cottage, I was actually almost drowning in my blood. I mean, I was gurgling. The floorboard was full of blood. The guard back there had his foot in the small of my back to hold me down with my legs curled back against the seat. And that's when I woke up, because I was actually beginning to choke to death and was still coming out of shock is what it is.
Right.
And when they got the door open, two of them, I couldn't stand. I couldn't walk. I couldn't move. Two of them helped drag me up the steps to the right into the latrine, and I was told to stand there until that cottage father came downstairs. So we had cottage father that lived in each cottage.
Okay.
This one lived overhead of us.
When the cottage father came, what happened?
He came down the stairs. I had been standing there a good 25 minutes, and I was about ready to pass out again. The blood was running all over the floor. I was just standing there, and I knew I wasn't supposed to move, and I didn't. And he walked up behind me, and his name was Mr. Hagan. He said, "Well, Jerry, that's one of the better ones I've seen in a long time. How do you feel?" And I refused. I didn't answer. I would not speak. At that time, if I would have had something to grab a hold of and was able to do it, I'd have probably taken his life.
Yeah.
That's how it was.
Yeah.
Now, I could not move until he told me to, And he said, I want you to reach around there and rip that nightgown that's in your legs, rip it out of there now. I said, sir, I need I need to go to the infirmary. You will not go to the goddamn infirmary, boy, because you're a liar. You lied the whole time you were down there getting beat. You lied, and we do not help liars. So I started ripping it out. And it came, but it was awful painful.
Tell
I
the listeners.
I left pieces in there that were in there for months.
Wait a minute, Jerry. Jerry, wait a minute. They don't understand what you mean when you say you left pieces. Jerry, what you told me and what I know happened is the nightgown, you were hit, flogged so hard that your nightgown actually was embedded in your skin. Is that right?
And my underwear as well.
Embedded in your skin, and that's what you're talking about.
Embedded in my skin.
That's what you're talking about, that it took months for these fragments of cloth to actually come out of your body.
Yes, ma'am. Now, I have pictures that the FDLE came right here during their investigation from Tallahassee and took pictures of the scars on my body, and they're there today. They are there 50 years later. Now, how would you like to live with that?
Honey, nobody should
I'm
live with
not.
that.
I'm sorry. I
No, don't
apologize.
be sorry. You don't have any reason to be sorry. You didn't cause this. None of you boys did. None of you men did. Okay? You were victims of this sadomasochism, and I'm telling you, it's no different than what we're seeing today. This house only was shut down finally, and I believe that it was through your voices. Through your persistence.
It was. Absolutely. Robert Straley, please touch on why they were shut down for me very quickly.
Yes,
very
quickly.
It came straight from the Department of Justice.
Tell us. Go ahead, Robert.
Yes. Of course, they said it was budgetary reasons, but that is a bunch of baloney. We didn't know it, but the Department of Justice was investigating this, as it was going along. Well, they sent out, released a press statement, and it was a scathing report. They said that the abuse was so bad it violated the civil and constitutional rights of the boys. Then they sent a letter to Governor Scott, and in other words, they fired a bullet over his bow and basically said, fix this or we'll come in and fix it for you.
Right.
So they immediately went back to the site of the death of Eric Perez, Miami, firing people there. They closed 2 institutions. They went to another place where a child had died from medical neglect, and they appointed Wainsor Walters to the DJ Department of Juvenile Justice, and she has done a good job.
Yes, amen.
It's not something that was going to be fixed overnight, because this has gone on for a very long time. And as far as an apology, what we want to hear from the state of Florida is that these were no spankings. This was no fairy tale or folklore. They flogged us.
That's right, they did.
8 years there.
Listen, I don't think it's
I'm telling you right now, in the days of slavery, it was very rare for them to give a slave over 50 lashes. If they gave them 100 lashes, it had to be something very serious, because they didn't want to damage their merchandise.
Yeah. See, the problem is, gentlemen, to these sadomasochist evil monsters, they don't consider children valuable at all.
We were called throwaways.
Throwaways. That would be.
We were sent up there to do their work.
Yes.
Judge Milton, way back in, not way when it very started, in 1903, I think, a letter to the Jackson County Board and wanted to send boys up there with an indeterminate sentence. In other words, they could keep them there till they were 21.
And that's the way that...
Because they needed more boys to work the farm.
That's right. They're looking for workers, and they're looking for workers that they know they can shut up if they dare to complain, or they'll flog them. Either way, they've got some free labor.
They farmed them out to the citizenry of Mariana. That was against the law back then.
Well, it's all against the law. Flogging a kid, my dear, is against the law. Gentlemen, I need
back
somebody...
then the law said you could paddle
Yeah.
strap or spank a boy, but it had to be done as if by a loving parent.
Yeah.
Well, you know, those men practically
Well, they
jumped
were.
off the
They
floor.
certainly.
Tammy,
Yes.
Bobby, I hate to interrupt,
Yeah.
but we have Robert Baxter.
I know, and I want to get something from Robert.
He is the oldest, very close to being the oldest White House boy survivor.
Okay.
And he'll tell you he'd rather go back into combat. He served in Korea than to ever go back to that White House. Bobby, you still there, sir?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, Bobby, I'm so sorry, gentlemen. We have to. I want to make sure that we hear everybody, but I want to kind of consolidate so that we do get this information out to the listeners. Please go ahead, Robert.
Well, my story's not going to take that long. I was sent there in June of 1950. I ran away about 3 weeks later. Was gone about 4 days out in the woods. Got picked up, brought back to the White House at 2 o'clock in the morning. Back then it was the ice cream factory.
Oh.
And you've heard the story about the strap they beat him with.
Yes.
Well, when I was there, they used the board. And Mr. Heller's got the board, or he had the board. In fact, FDLE, I think, got it from his house.
They do. They're holding that board right as we speak, Robert.
They
Anyway,
confiscated the original board that they used to beat.
Yes, they have. They are holding it in evidence. We found that out.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Robert.
Okay. Well, I was beat with that. And when they got through at 2 o'clock in the morning, they told me to get back to my cottage. Well, blood was running in my shoes. My pants were bloody. They wouldn't put me in a car, apparently, for that reason. On the way to the cottage, I said, to hell with this, I'm leaving. And man, I hit the woods again. 3 days later, two or 3 days later, they caught me again. Now, I've been, at that point, 6 days with no food, bloody pants on. The infection had set in my rear end and my butt. They took me back to the White House about 1 that night.
Oh, man.
And started beating me. Oh, bad. And I woke up at the hospital, I don't know how many days later. I just praise God for one thing. I could have been in one of them holes. Because when they hit me the first couple of times, I guess I went out. I don't know. But I was in the hospital a couple of weeks. I got out of the hospital, and when I was in the hospital, there were 3 men come in suits and come back to the bed I was in, asked me how I felt, and looked at me. And they walked out, and they stopped at the door. Now, I talked to one other boy, White House boy, that got licks with the boards. But they quit using the board, and I don't know why they quit or went to the strap. But because the guy that swung the board was Raymond Hatton. He was 6'1" or 6'2", 210 pounds. And when the board, when he had it over his head, it hit the ceiling and go click, click, click. And then you heard a shoo and a bam. And it was better. Well, it was merciless. Anyway, he told me.
Hey, also, Robert, Tammy, I want to let the public to know. I have a picture of that board sent to me by the FDLE after I requested it. This board has holes drilled in it all the way to the end, Tammy.
Oh, my God.
Drilled out holes.
Well, but anyway, I was there 10 months after that. I got out in April of 51, and I never run again. I did get whipped one more time for fighting, but
how long? You were there 10 months total, Robert?
Ma'am?
I
was a total 10 months there, 6 days.
Okay. Somebody, we have somebody who's asking, what did you guys do? How did you get out? Was it just that you aged out and they couldn't keep you anymore?
No.
A lot of us did.
My mother put me in there, so I was a ward of the state. But when my mother, she was a drunk, and she showed up at Vance's house, the man asked her, "Where is Robert?" And finally my mom told her, and within 2 weeks she had me out of there. She knew a lot of people, and she worked for the Seaboard Railroad. So,
yeah.
And I never got a letter, a card, or anything from anybody, and nobody knew I was there until Vance found out.
Now, Tammy,
gentlemen,
this is all right.
Right.
I sat in a hallway of a courthouse. I lived in St. Petersburg, Florida. I had my commitment papers from Manatee County.
I think that
I lived in St. Petersburg.
Okay, gentlemen, listen. You know, we need a day. We might need a month, for God's sakes, to cover this, because each and every word that you're saying is so important, because it has directed your life. What has happened here has.
Well, I would like to say one other thing, if I may.
Okay.
And I want to address this to the state of Florida.
Okay.
I am sick of hearing people say that there's no crimes committed. Our lawsuit was kicked out because of some technicality on the law limitations. Anybody that can look from 1918 with all the articles on this school and the people in the state of Florida, the legislature, and in the Capitol have turned a blind eye to it. I got criticized for comparing it to the Holocaust. But let me tell you that the only difference between it and the Holocaust, Hitler told them to kill them people at the Holocaust. The state of Florida put us there, turned their back, walked off, and said, do what you want to.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Amen.
The state of Florida has the answer for this, and I don't know what it'll take, ma'am.
Well, you know what it'll take? It'll take we the people to be there. You gentlemen need to get permits, close off streets, invite the people that are on your side, and believe me, there are a lot of us, okay? And you hold these signs and say we demand for our voices to be heard. We refuse to be ignored anymore, and we refuse the crimes, the heinous crimes that have been committed against us to be denied through some technicality. And a technicality...
Now, here's another thing.
Okay.
And there's men in here now that can't get their records because in 1967, the legislature passed some laws that allowed them to destroy the records because they saw this coming down.
Well, guess what? That's the state's fault. And so
that's
now,
the state. Yes,
that's the state's fault. So now, since they have they can't produce records, guess what? We have to push for their voices to be heard. And if they're not believed, guess what? It's not their fault. It's the state's fault. The state of Florida is responsible to hold these records.
Well, we do have one thing. We have Senator Nelson.
Okay, wait a minute. Who's speaking now? I'm sorry.
This is Bill.
Hi, Bill. Okay.
We didn't even get to the part where they drugged me to keep me from running again, and kept me drugged for 2 months.
Do you know what kind of? Do you know what kind of drugs? Does somebody have their volume up?
They had a thing. They had a
gentlemen.
Solitary confinement.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me stop you for a moment, Bill. If anybody has their volume up on anything, would you turn it down so we don't have an echo in the studio? Because we want everybody to hear very clearly. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Bill. I'm sorry. They drugged you for 2 years.
The second time, they put me in a place called Pierce Hall.
Okay.
That's where the local psychiatrist had his office.
That's okay. What happened?
They fed us a stuff called Sousa soup. His name was Dr.
soup.
Sousa.
Oh, okay.
And it was a soup laced with Thorazine.
Oh my God.
And if you didn't take it, you starved to death. So they would give you some bread, they would give you water, and they would give you this soup laced with Thorazine. And they kept me in there for 2 months because I was a danger of running away again.
A danger to run for your life.
When you're locked up in solitary, Tammy, you feel that life is not worth going on. Correct, Bill?
Of course. I've heard this. There's another house, guys, and Jerry and any of you other gentlemen that want to be involved, I will have a private discussion with you about this other house that I have uncovered that is still open. And we've got a whistleblower employee, guys. And so I know you're going to want to be a part of this. And you know what? Quite honestly, you should be the leaders in this because who has more experience than you guys?
And that whistleblower is probably right.
Oh, no, I'm sure because I've already investigated it. So he is right.
Yeah.
He is absolutely right.
Somebody's covering.
Tammy, if we're on a schedule, too, I would like to mention while these men are on here
Who didn't talk? Wait a minute, Jerry. Who hasn't spoken yet?
Jerry Burns on here. Did Jerry Burns come on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Terry, we want to. Yes,
we have not. Yes.
Okay, Terry, please. I apologize. You be forceful with your voice, my dear. We have no problem with that.
I was sent there in 1964 for skipping school, and I stayed there a little over 9 months, and I was there 3 weeks before I went to the White House. And I was talking about running away, and I got took to the White House with Tidwell and White, and I got 31 lashes from Tidwell, and I tried to get up off the bed, and I thought he was done, but he told Mr. White that you finish him up. So White, he was a good-sized fellow. He put his foot on the back of my head, and I got another 18 from him, and I was bloody, and then they made me run all the way back to my cottage. And the next day, or about 2 weeks after that, my parents, somehow they let them see me, and I was black, blue, and I had scabs all over my back and my legs. And my dad and mom seen my butt, and I told them that what Tidwell told me, if I said anything, there'd be consequences. So my dad went to the administration building, and he was going to take me out of there, and they called the Jackson County Sheriff Department and told him if he removed me from there that they would arrest him.
Oh, my
God. So the next day, Tidwell comes and puts me in Pierce Hall in solitary, and here I can't hardly walk. It took me 2 weeks before I could even sit down, and I had to sleep on my stomach. And he put me in solitary now for 28 days with a cup of water and 3 slices of bread a day.
Oh, my God. Terry.
And I was 13 years old when this happened, and the only way I got out of there, my parents had a good friend that was a circuit judge, and they worked with him, and I got out with a little over 9 months, I believe it was. But during that 9 months, they had told me not to cover your head up when you're asleep at night. Well, you know, kids gonna pull cover over the head, but a guard come in one night and hit me on the side of my foot with his big time clock, and my foot turned as black as a tire, and I couldn't walk on it for 2 months after that, and they wouldn't let me go to the hospital or nothing. But they kept everybody up there in that school in fear, because when the boy went to the White House, they made sure that the whole cottage seen what they had given him.
Yes, of course, that was their intention. That was their intention. This was a mental abuse that was so severe that, like you said, Jerry, and you couldn't have said it better, just the thought, just the threat, waiting in line that it was going to be your turn soon was almost as severe. That anticipation, knowing the beatings, hearing the cries.
Do you know how much that can damage you for the rest of your life?
Jerry, I can say I know, but you know what? Realistically, I haven't been in your shoes, so I can only imagine, but you know. Each and every one of you knows better than any other damn State Department or anybody else, or let's bring up Troy Tidwell, okay? Because this man, this one-armed man is still alive, folks, possibly in his 90s. He has pled the Fifth. Is that right, Jerry?
That is correct. He is protected in the state of Florida under the Fifth Amendment, and he will not speak again. And the state attorney that handles that particular county has turned a blind eye on 4 witnesses that can prove that he is culpable of murder, of the death of Edgar Allen, a football player, and Bill Price played on the same team with me. Billy, tell him.
Absolutely. The boy fell out. I think he had some kind of respiratory problem to start with, and they thought that he was faking when he fell down. And they continued making him get up and run until the boy fell out. He could not breathe, and They would not get him help. They didn't do anything, and he laid in there on the hardwood floor of that gym for 45 minutes before anybody ever brought him out of there, and when they brought him out, he was dead.
Guys, this is... I want everybody, on our chat roll, they're asking the name Troy Tidwell. I'm relying on you guys to send a lot of links because we're going to exploit this. This show is going to go out. We're really, not that you guys need any help. However, let's really get proactive people involved that have been abused by this system. Their children have been abused. Yep. Their children have been silenced, and you damn well better know that what I go up against are these parents who do try to protect their children, okay? And the children are told, if you say anything, we're going to screw you up and we're going to get you good. These kids are afraid to talk.
We'll see.
Exactly, and that's what I say, and that's why I'm here. We'll see.
Gentlemen, I would like to say one. Tammy, I would like to add one little issue.
Okay.
If nobody listening to this program thinks how bad this place was.
Oh no, I'm going to talk. Go ahead.
We had a woman back in the 50s who had 2 sons located at our school. She was so upset that she took a 12-gauge shotgun and killed herself over worrying about her children being there at Christmas time. She committed suicide. We have the article.
Oh, my God. Please send that
to me. She killed
herself
over it. Now.
Yeah, one of the boys did the same thing. Rather than go back to the school, he ran home and killed himself with a shotgun.
Guys, do you find it bizarre, though? Can I just put a little suspicion out there, because that's my mind and that's how I'm wired. These shotgun deaths, and Jerry, you and I had a talk that we won't have time to get into. Being a female, okay, I would rather kill myself through an overdose, kill myself through slicing my wrist. Lots of people died of these shotguns, people that were proactive in trying to help. Do you find that a little bit suspicious, questionable at the very least?
Well, to one degree I do, but to another degree that somebody that cannot go forward any further in their life, the 12-gauge shotgun is the item to use.
Right. What if she was coming across something that she was ready to expose and they had to shut her mouth and make it look like a suicide?
Well, I will only say this. The article is in the newspaper, and that's the way it was wrote. Robert, you read it. I sent it to you, correct?
Yes.
Well,
Robert?
Okay, we're going to get this shot. Go ahead. We don't have time to talk.
There was a boy in the jail.
Okay.
Was going back to Mariana. He hung himself. He had to pick his feet up off the floor and hold them in order to hang themselves. I don't know how a person could do that, but he did it.
And a young boy.
Yes.
That's
how old?
That's how much fear there was, Tammy.
Honey,
the fear
I know.
was terrible.
How old was this boy? Does anybody have any idea?
Robert?
I've got that article.
It's okay. It doesn't matter. It was a child. It was a child who would rather have taken his own life
than to go back.
There's
one other thing that I want to say.
Okay, who's speaking now?
This is Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Yeah,
okay.
After I ran away, there was a guy that ran away the second time I ran away.
Okay.
There was a guy that ran away 3 weeks after me.
Okay.
And there was an officer chasing him. This is a 15-year-old boy running away. And the officer pulled out his gun, fired 3 warning shots, and one hit him in the back of the head.
Hey, Billy, that was Raymond Phillips. He was in the cottage next to me, Billy.
Yep. And
That was Raymond Phillips. Yes, sir.
It's me sitting there saying, that could have been me.
Yes.
Yep.
Guys,
I ran 3 weeks before that.
Guys,
report,
something we
10
need.
boys killed like that.
Something we need to bring up that's really important. they took bodies many times when you guys heard these floggings or didn't hear them but saw, your friends coming bloodied, just destroyed, holes in their bodies. Sometimes you didn't see some of your friends return. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
Sometimes your friends who you suffered with never came back.
You're correct.
Ma'am?
Yes.
There's one other thing. When Jerry was talking about the graveyards earlier, the lady from South Florida found 14 to 16 bodies in the marked graveyard. The remaining of the 55 were found just scattered around. They weren't
And
in
one
a
buried on
marked
top of the
survey
other.
graveyard.
One buried on top of the other, 15 inches deep.
Oh my God! You guys pushed to have these places. You pushed to have these bodies exhumed.
Yes. I was present. I was present along with Robert Straley, who's on the phone, and as well as James DeKnight Harley, were present at the Capitol building waiting for that vote that morning. Correct, guys?
Yeah, that's right.
And
we were there.
You finally got the vote and made them, pushed for them to go in and exhume these bodies to find out, to prove you guys weren't lying. You watched dead friends be dragged away and you knew that they were dead and you didn't know what the hell happened to them after that. Maybe everybody in there assumed that they were going to be returned to their parents, but they never were. They were thrown in some hole that was dug by some other workers with no...
Robert, Tammy,
yes.
To touch base once again, Robert, tell her about the list that we acquired from Andrew Pule when he went to Tallahassee. Tell Miss Tammy how many men we have missing kids right now that cannot be accounted for.
He went and hand copied out of 2 ledgers a list of all the boys that had ran, and he marked them down as to white or black. They had the parent's name and what city they lived in. They had the boy's name and when he was brought up there, and then they had the date of his escape. And out of this 178 boys, there was only 11 that had anything written on were they returned, were they recaptured, were they released. Everything else is blank.
Yes, now, unfinished ledgers.
Right, so how can that be? There was so much.
Well, no, it can't be. It can't be. They murdered them and they threw them in holes. That's how it can
Jerry
be.
and I both agree on. I told a reporter, I said, I believe there's 200 bodies up there. Now they've already found 100, and I said from 1940 back to 1900 was the most brutal years of all. If just 3 boys a year died, there's another 100 bodies.
That's right.
And I'm not backing off of that.
No, and don't back off. Jerry, you and I were talking. I remember.
I don't think they bothered with a cemetery back in, say, 1910 or 1920. They probably just dug a hole and threw a few boys in there and dug a hole and did another.
I'm sure that's exactly what happened. Gentlemen, listen, we have 5 minutes left. We've got 5 minutes left. Jerry, you and I were on the phone 6 months ago or so. CNN called you. You actually, I'll never forget it, and I'm honored because you said, I'll get back to them. I'm talking to you, Tammy. You, during that conversation, I just adore you. During that conversation, you told me, Tammy, I have information of a second cemetery that I damn well know children are in, and you pushed for that, right?
Yes.
And what happened, Jerry? We got 4 minutes now.
Senator Nelson just announced this past week, he suspects, after 12 bodies that have been examined in that graveyard by USF, they determined to be black. We have yet to find 2 adults that are supposed to be buried there who are white adults who died trying to save a few of the boys that died in a cottage fire. To my knowledge, at this time, They have not been exhumed. So where are they?
Right.
We think, personally, that graveyard, which Robert Straley and I and the rest of us, as well as Bill Price, Terry, and Bob Baxter, we have always thought, unless we're going to be proven wrong, that Boot Hill Cemetery contains black children only.
And at that time, they did not bury blacks and whites together.
That is absolutely correct, Tammy.
Early 60s.
Wow.
Yep.
But the one thing that tore me up more than anything is when she pulled the one little boy out of the grave, and they checked his pockets, and they found a marble.
Yep.
In his back pocket.
Oh, my God.
Probably the last thing.
Go ahead.
They think this boy is, what, around 9 years old, I think?
They said about 6, is what Aaron said.
Oh, my God.
Guys,
oh, my God.
What next? Okay, we've got 2 minutes left. I wish that I didn't have to go. UBN Radio has been gracious because hearing this story and hearing you gentlemen come on, they actually extended the show, and we all want to thank you, UBN, because without you, we wouldn't be able to get this out. So,
thank you, UBN.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, thank you, UBN.
Yes.
Absolutely.
They're very passionate about the protection of children, and we need more people like these folks here. People that step up, that are willing to get as vocal as you gentlemen have. Gentlemen, I love each and every one of you. I have no words. And I know no words that anybody would have would take away the beatings, the sound of the floggings that probably, fill your nightmares up. And do you think that without this happening, that you had a chance to live a happy life?
Well,
You make the best out of the life that you've been given,
That's
You
right.
do what you can. We've all survived. We're still living now. And, we'll go on.
Has trauma inflicted
sure-
your life? Has trauma inflicted your life throughout the course of your life as a result of this home and these floggings?
I have been treated
absolutely.
for post-stress trauma since I was 16 years old, and I am still under medication for these issues.
Of course. Jerry?
I have been sent twice to anger management, and I was sent there in my mid-60s. It's never going to be over for me. It's never.
Of course not, and it never will be over. Jerry, your life was changed and traumatized as a result of this facility and of these.
I think everyone that stepped in there's life was changed.
I'd like each person before we go to once again say your name for our listeners, because we want to honor each one, and just tell us, was your life traumatized?
This is Bill
Yes.
Price.
Robert Straley, Clearwater. Yes, it was traumatizing, and I still have anger problems.
Because of this facility.
Terry Burns?
Yeah. It's gone in.
Yes.
Terry?
Go ahead, sir. Give your statement quickly on your on your life, what you're feeling.
Your name is Terry Burns?
My name is Terry Burns, and I come out of that school with so much anger and fear in me. Until this day, I still have nightmares. I wake up sometimes of crying in my sleep or dreaming about that place. It's affected my whole life since I was there.
Bobby Baxter?
Well, when I got out, I joined the Marine Corps, and that somewhat helped me, but my life has been in turmoil. I went through marriages with two of the best women that's ever been, and I'm married to the third one now, and it took me until I was about 45 before I finally got it somewhat together, which I'm not sure that's a good example, but
it's your example, and it's
it'll ever
good.
be over.
Right. That's the point. That's the point.
My last
Anybody
statement.
else? Wait a minute, Jerry. Did we miss somebody?
Yeah, you missed Harley over here.
Who did we
Okay,
miss?
we missed the Harley guy.
Harley.
Yeah.
Oh, Harley.
Anyway, it definitely changed my life, and today I'm a better person for what I've endured and for what I've accomplished. And we are all us White House boys are better men today.
You bet your ass you are.
Our lifetimes. So, we're all better men today. And, I just can't say enough for the organization and for all the publicity and news media and programs like this. The people are the greatest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Harley.
My last statement.
Yes.
I'm the last one, right? Robert, did you say?
Yep, you're the last.
All right, guys. I love you a lot. And it ain't over till we say it's over. I'm sorry.
I love you guys.
It's over until we say it.
Amen.
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 Amen. This is a
We've
brotherhood.
come a long way, Tammy.
Yes, honey, I know you have.
I mean, we say we had a common threat years ago, and we're here for a common cause now.
Guys,
We're all getting older, but we're getting better.
You bet. With like fine wine, guys, like fine wine.
Yep. Thank you very much for getting the word out
Thank
for
you,
us.
Tammy.
Thank you, gentlemen. I
Thank
love
you.
all of you. You are beautiful. You are beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, folks, for listening. We thank all of the listeners today. I know that this was a hard show to listen to. And you know what? The beatings are a hard thing to take. And as hard as it is for each one of us to listen, this is real. And when we don't want to listen anymore, then damn it, let's stop it. And that'll be the day that we don't have to listen anymore. So thank you, folks, all of you, for... And today we're going to honor the White House boys. That's the children that we're going to honor today on National Safe Child Show. The White House boys. Yes. They deserve all the honor. They deserve the honor. They are true heroes. They are true heroes in every sense of the word. And this is far from over. And they will get their way because they're determined. I love you, folks. Thank you for joining us. I love you, UBN. Thank you for extending this very important show. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the National Safe Child Show on UBN Radio. For past episodes, visit the archives on ubnradio.com. And for more information, go to nationalsafechildcoalition.com.
Tune in to Dr. Judy, WTF, every Thursday at 8 p.m. right here